Welcome to the deep dive. Today, our focus is really zeroing in on this huge Champions League semifinal second leg. Arsenal's trip to Paris facing PSG. It's quite the setup.
It really is. We're going to sift through the analysis, look at the form, try and get a clearer picture of, well, what might actually happen.
Because the situation, it couldn't be much more dramatic, could it? Arsenal go to Paris, 1 goal down.
Exactly. That first leg defeat at home, and the big thing was their attack just sort of faded after halftime. No real shots on goal.
Right, and now they've got to overturn that against PSG, who, let's not forget, haven't lost at home in the Champions League all season. Perfect record.
It's a formidable challenge, really formidable challenge.
Okay, let's really get into Arsenal's side of things first. This predicament, people are calling it a steep climb, and you can see why.
Oh, absolutely. They need at least 1 goal just to get level, probably 2 to win it outright, and in that Parc des Princes atmosphere against that home record.
Looking back at that first leg, it really felt like PSG executed their plan perfectly. They shut down Arsenal's key players, didn't they?
Yeah.
Especially Ødegaard.
They did. They were very effective. Got the goal through Dembélé, managed the game. They didn't seem to need to, push themselves to the absolute limit.
What was it specifically about how they handled Ødegaard that stood out for you? Because he just couldn't seem to get into the game.
Well, what was fascinating was how compact PSG kept things centrally. You had their deeper midfielders almost dropping onto the defender's toes at times.
Right.
And they just swarmed Ødegaard whenever he tried to pick up the ball in those little pockets of space he loved.
So his usual passing lanes, like out to Saka or Martinelli, they were just blocked off?
Pretty much, yeah. Congested. It forced him wider or deeper, where he's frankly less dangerous. They just denied him that critical time and space to make things happen.
So, okay, if we assume it's going to be just as tight in the middle in Paris, what can Arsenal actually do differently? Tactically, Hoping Ødegaard just magically finds space seems optimistic.
Yeah, probably not the main plan. One potential route could be trying to use the flanks much more directly. Their fullbacks were, let's say, quite conservative in London. Mm-hmm. Maybe they need to really push Ben White and Zinchenko or Timber if he's fit. Maybe get them bombing forward more, deliver crosses earlier, perhaps.
To try and stretch that PSG defense. Pull them side to side.
Exactly. Stretch their horizontal coverage, as they say. That might just create a bit more room centrally for Ødegaard or Rice to exploit.
Or maybe more runs in behind. That felt missing in the first leg, too.
That's another option, definitely. Vary the attack, ask different questions of the PSG backline. They need something a bit less predictable.
But look, it's not all doom and gloom for Arsenal, surely.
Yeah.
We have seen what they're capable of. That big win away at Real Madrid stands out.
Oh, absolutely. That performance showed their ceiling.
So to get anywhere near that level in Paris, key players just have to deliver. You need Ødegaard finding those moments, Saliba immense at the back, Rice bossing the midfield.
And maybe that little bit of tactical unpredictability we talked about, a spark.
Fundamentally, though, isn't it also about belief? They have to go there genuinely thinking they can turn this around, that PSG's ground isn't some sort of fortress they can't breach.
That mental side is huge, absolutely critical. The Madrid win wasn't just tactics. It was that mindset, that confidence they could go to a place like the Bernabeu and win.
Can they tap into that again?
They have to try.
Mm-hmm.
But, doing it against a PSG side that's ahead, feeling confident with that home crowd, it's a different kind of psychological test, definitely.
Let's talk about recent form then, because it's a bit of a mixed picture for both, isn't it?
It is, yeah. PSG, as we said, perfect at home in Europe, 4 wins, scored 14 goals. Very impressive.
Across all competitions, they've actually lost 3 of their last 6 matches, including that loss to Strasbourg where, okay, they rotated the squad a bit, but still.
Yeah, that's the interesting contrast. Arsenal, meanwhile, their only Champions League defeat in 6 was that first leg against PSG. Before that, they had the Madrid win.
But then they followed the PSG loss with another defeat, didn't they? That Bremer result was worrying, especially if they fielded quite a strong team.
It was. It raised some questions, didn't it? Defensive lapses, issues with finishing chances. Not ideal preparation.
So what do you make of this form? PSG seemed totally focused on the Champions League at home, maybe less so elsewhere.
That could be part of it. Their domestic league situation is comfortable, so maybe the focus is just laser sharp on Europe. Those losses might hint at a slight vulnerability maybe, or just prioritization.
And for Arsenal, could those defeats point to fatigue or a dip in confidence at the worst possible time?
Possibly both. The Bremer game especially felt concerning. Struggling to score, looking shaky at the back. You wonder about their resilience. Now the pressure is really, really on.
Okay, so you've got PSG's strong home record versus some recent wobbles. Arsenal needing to score, coming off back-to-back losses. Given all that, what are the absolute critical factors, do you think, that will decide if Arsenal can pull this off in Paris? Let's maybe start with injuries. That always seems key at this stage.
Yeah, injuries are always massive now. For PSG, the big worry is Ousmane Dembélé.
Ah, the goal scorer from the first leg. He was a real handful.
He was a constant menace, wasn't he? His dribbling down that right side caused Arsenal loads of problems, but he picked up an ankle knock.
So his availability is genuinely in doubt.
It seems uncertain. Reports suggest he's improving, but whether he's fit enough to start or even play a full part, it's unclear. And with only a one-goal lead, you wonder if the manager will risk him if he's not, 100%.
That's a big potential blow for them. If Dembélé is out, the analysis we looked at suggested Goncalo Ramos might lead the line instead.
That seems the likely switch, yeah. Probably with Kvaratskhelia and maybe the youngster design duel flanking him.
Which is a different kind of attack, right? More physical presence with Ramos, maybe raw pace out wide, but not that tricky, unpredictable dribbling Dembélé brings.
Exactly. It changes the dynamic. Without Dembele's ability to just beat a player from a standing start, maybe those quick counters PSG used in London become harder to trigger.
And his pressing, too. He works hard off the ball.
He does. His energy was important for their high press, so if he's missing, perhaps PSG sit a little deeper. Focus more on keeping the ball with that strong midfield.
Which could, maybe, give Arsenal's fullbacks a bit more license to get forward, if they're not quite so worried about Dembélé racing into the space behind them.
Potentially, yeah. It could open things up slightly, but that PSG midfield, likely Pintinha, Fabian Ruiz, Neves, that's still a formidable unit. Loads of control, dynamism there.
Okay, let's flip to Arsenal's injury list then. It feels a bit more extensive, maybe more worrying.
It does seem that way. Though first, the good news for them. Thomas Partey is back from suspension.
Ah, that's huge. His absence felt really significant in the first leg. Rice had to play deeper, didn't he?
He did, yeah. It sort of disrupted Arsenal's whole midfield structure, gave PSG's players like Vitinha more influence centrally. Partey's return is absolutely vital.
So that lets Rice play his more natural, driving box-to-box role.
Precisely. It frees Rice up, and it probably gives Ødegaard a bit more freedom, too, knowing Partey's there providing that defensive screen.
But beyond Partey's return, the list of concerns is quite long.
It is. This Champions League run seems to have taken its toll. We're hearing doubts about Havertz, Jesus, Zinchenko, Tomiyasu.
And the big one, Gabriel Magalhaes, the center back. That sounds serious.
Yeah, a groin issue, apparently. His participation looks doubtful, which is a massive potential blow. There was also mention of Team B being a doubt. I assume that's just referring to another squad player with a knock, not a specific person.
Right. But if Gabriel is out, and Timber is perhaps not fully fit either, who partners Saliba?
That's the worry. It would likely be Kiwior stepping in alongside Saliba. And while Kiwior is a decent player, that partnership just doesn't have the same level of understanding or experience together, especially in a game like this.
Could be a real vulnerability against PSG's attack, even without Dembélé, perhaps.
Definitely. And if Havertz is also out, that limits their attacking options off the bench, too. Puts even more pressure on Martinelli, Ødegaard, Saka. They'll need something special.
Okay, let's talk likely tactical setups then. For PSG, sounds like they'll stick with what they know, that 4-3-3.
Seems very likely, yeah. Focus on possession, that solid defensive shape across the pitch. Donnarumma in goal, almost certainly.
Defense, probably Hakimi, Marquinhos, Mendes, and one of Berardo or Passell. Maybe Passell to deal with Martinelli's pace.
That makes sense, yeah. Passell's maybe got the edge in tackling duels there. Then the midfield three we mentioned, Ruiz, Neves, Vitinha pulling the strings.
And up front, if Dembele's out, it's Ramos through the middle, Kvaratskhelia and design duel out wide.
That looks like the most probable setup. Designed, you'd think, to control the game, protect the lead, but still carry a threat with the pace out wide and Ramos' finishing.
Though, as we noted, they have conceded in their last 3 home games, so they're not completely watertight.
No, not invincible. There are potentially ways through if Arsenal are smart and, crucially, clinical.
And for Arsenal, given the injuries, they'll just have to field their strongest available side, presumably.
You'd imagine so. Raya in goal. Back 4. Maybe White, Saliba, Kiwior if Gabriel's out, and then Zinchenko or perhaps Lewis at left back.
Midfield picks itself, really, doesn't it? Ødegaard, the returning Partey and Rice.
Has to be, yeah. That's their engine room. Then Saka on the right, Martinelli on the left.
But hang on, there was that interesting little mention of a potential curveball using Michel Merino as a center forward. That came out of left field a bit.
It did. It's a fascinating thought, isn't it? A real tactical gamble.
What would be the logic there? Disrupt Marquinhos and his partner.
Possibly. Marino offers a different kind of physical presence, doesn't he? Maybe the idea is to use him to occupy the center back, stretch them vertically, create little pockets of space behind him for Ødegaard or Rice to run into.
An aerial threat too, maybe, for those crosses we talked about?
Yeah, it definitely adds that. It's a tactic Arsenal have, dabbled with occasionally when they need a different attacking angle. It would certainly give PSG something different to think about.
But you'd be sacrificing a more natural finisher in that spot, potentially. A big call.
A very big call in a game of this magnitude. High risk, potentially high reward.
Right. Finally, let's quickly touch on the history and the odds. That 1-0 win in London was actually PSG's first win against Arsenal. Ever.
In 7 meetings, believe it or not. Yeah. And the previous 2 times Arsenal went to Paris, it ended 1-1 back in 94 and 2016.
So does that ancient history offer any hope for Arsenal? Or is it just trivia?
Well, it's maybe a tiny psychological crumb of comfort, knowing they haven't lost on their last 2 visits. And their recent away form generally has been strong, just 1 loss in 17 away, 2 European away wins on the bounce, scoring in their last 5 away.
But the bigger picture, the Champions League semifinal history, that doesn't look great for them, does it?
No, the cold stats aren't kind. Very few teams, only 2 in fact, have ever lost the first leg of a semi at home and still reached the final. Arsenal have never done it.
And for PSG, winning the away leg first, they usually go through.
Almost always. Only failed once in that position, against Man United back in 2019. The historical precedent is very much in their favor.
Plus that home record this season, 4 wins, 14 goals. It's imposing.
It is. But again, not perfect. They have conceded in the last 3 home games in this competition, and they lost at home to Liverpool and Atletico earlier this season.
So vulnerabilities exist. They can be beaten at the Parc des Princes.
Absolutely. It shows that a well-drilled, determined opponent with a clear plan and who takes their chances can get a result there. Arsenal need defensive solidity. They need to be ruthless when chances come and maybe, hope for a moment of magic or a tactical masterstroke.
So wrapping this all up then, as we look ahead to this huge night in Paris, all the tactics, the history, the injuries, is this just set up for another PSG home win in the Champions League? Or do you genuinely see a path for Arsenal to rip up the script, defy those odds? What for you is the single biggest factor that swings this one way or the other? It feels incredibly finely balanced despite the first leg score.
It really does. The stakes are immense. You look at everything. Maybe it comes down to which team handles the pressure of the occasion better, or perhaps just one moment of brilliance or one mistake. It's going to be fascinating to watch unfold.